happen, right?
You just had one not too long ago.
Which one? Because I've had several.
No, recently, in the last 6-7 months ago. Remember you said something triggered me.
I'm gonna tell you, something triggered me. So we have 3 sons. We have, our oldest is 30, our middle is 22, our baby is 18. And so the 22-year-old is absolutely crazy. He's the creative. His personality is huge. He's friendly. He's never met a stranger. He's, for all intents and purposes, he's his dad, right? And I'm watching him with this one young woman that he's been with since they were like 15 or 16. She was the one that pushed him, made sure he graduated on time when he was falling behind. She was really like, you can do this, you know. She's been in his corner every step of the way. She just loves my son, and he has moments where he's in love with her, and then he has moments that he talks about and to her as if she's nothing. And so I caught him in one of those moments, and it triggered me. Because I'm like,
did she call? Because she lives in California.
Yeah, she's still, because we lived in California.
So he was raised basically in California until we moved here 4 years ago. But since then, he keeps going back and forth to L.A., and that's where she is. But tell, because we're very transparent. I want y'all to hear what he said to her over the phone. She called you and said this. Tell her what she called you.
Which thing?
Said.
You want it all out there?
Just
tell it make us look crazy.
No, it don't look crazy. It doesn't. It's the truth of reality of what it is. What he said to her.
I'm not sure. You tell it.
Well, you said, Gerald, we need to talk to little Gerald.
Right.
I said, what? She said, I'm so triggered. I'm hurt. I said, what happened? She said, my heart is hurt. She was about to cry. And I said, what do you do? The boy is grown. She said, his ex-girlfriend, because they're ex right now, right? He break up with her like we used to do.
Which we're so confused because she just texted yesterday and said, I'm coming to visit in January. I'm like, last I heard,
right.
wasn't nobody together. But that's a whole different thing.
He told her, and don't y'all judge my son if y'all haven't meet him. He said to her that you get on my nerves, and you're only good for a bullet in your head. Yeah. Okay? So Tammi came and told me, and I said, what? All right, we need to talk to him. So she's in a uproar now.
And I went spiritual. I said, you dealing with some kind of demonic, some kind of ugly demonic stuff.
But I told her, I said, we can't beat him up. We got to talk to him. I said, let me tell you why. Now, this is where y'all need to be writing stuff down at, right here. This is how I used to talk to his mother in our dating days. Because here's the thing. If I couldn't put my hands on you, I was going to beat you up with my mouth. Because I wanted you to feel the sting of what I was saying. And 9 times out of 10, I didn't mean the stuff I was saying. I just wanted you to be, I wanted you to feel the pain of something. Like, if you did something to me, okay, I can't beat you up. I'm going to find something about you I can figure out that's going to catch. There it is.
Well, let's say this, and I'm glad you say that. A lot of times as women, especially when we're in love, right, we can rationalize and justify a lot of things. Like what he just said, I couldn't do anything physically, right? So you can rationalize like, he hasn't hit me. No, he hasn't done anything. But what you don't realize is that you're being beat down and mishandled emotionally, verbally, mentally. Yeah. And what I have seen more so in marriages is there is such a thing as financial abuse. There is such a thing as financial abuse where whoever the prominent breadwinner is, and most times it's the male, not because he's more educated, but sometimes just because our system is set up where women just don't get equal pay. And so many times the male may be the predominant breadwinner, and then there's this reminder of, because I remember Gerald didn't get it before, and this is years and years ago, back when we lived in L.A. And I don't remember if it was a birthday or Christmas or something, and I asked him, where's my gift? And he went to the light switch and started flicking it on and off.
Absolutely, said Merry Christmas.
Right? In his mind at the time, he saw nothing wrong with that. Why? Because I'm raised as a man that provision, like you don't pay a bill, like you don't have to do anything. But for women, that's a type of financial abuse when I'm reminded that I don't bring as much financially to the table, but everything else that I do is negated. Almost, I'm raising kids. Oh, anybody can do that. Well, I'm washing the dishes. Oh, anybody. Look, I'll wash a dish. Watch this. You know what I'm saying? And that husbands or men that want to be married, I want you to understand that that is a form of abuse. Anytime you can take something that makes you more powerful in a thing and take that to put your foot on the neck of the person that you say you love or that you're there to care for, that is abuse. And then, and I'm going to give it back to you, and back to what I was saying about relational trauma and being in relationships that have toxic moments. It's just like if you touch something, right, and you wipe it down and you can't see your fingerprints anymore. It's like, oh, they're gone. But let somebody come in with the right kind of dust that can dust for fingerprints, is still going to be there. And my point is, you will not be touched by trauma and abuse and argumentative type relationships and being told things that damage your self-esteem. And just because you're happy years later, that doesn't erase the fingerprint of the trauma that you dealt with.
Absolutely.
And so many times as women, we get to this middle-aged point where many of us have a what about me moment. And that's when some of us disconnect. That's when some of us get into emotional relationships. That's when some of us have work husbands, people that will listen, people that will hear us. Not because what I'm in right now is not bad, but I can be triggered and I go right back to when it was that. And God forbid you marry the perpetrator who may be better now. That was what I had to deal with. My 9 years of dating this man that was all over the place for his own reasons, right? Who didn't realize he had issues by, dealing with the fact that his biological father wasn't there, or the things that he had to deal with, not realizing that a lot of that was being projected on me. But now God has changed him. Now I got a good husband, but he's still the man that said X, Y, and Z in 98. You get what I'm saying? And so now I have to tussle with how to love who he is versus what he did. Go ahead, baby.
No, let me take that from there. So what I did, like I told y'all about writing this down. So generational curses is the first thing we have to remember, that they will keep creeping up if you don't find a way to destroy it. If you don't find a way to destroy it, it will come into your marriage. And it can skip you. Y'all can be having the greatest marriage, and it jump on your kids. Jump right on them, and they doing some things that you like, oh, my God, they acting like me. So with my son, to make sure I close that, we sat him down, and I said, little Gerald, you may not know me and your mom all of our story. I need to tell you our story. Just like we sitting like this, I said, let me tell you our story. I used to talk to your mama like that. I used to beat up on your mama like that. I used to say things that I didn't mean, but now I'm married to her. Like she said, we get married thinking, because men are a little different. Fellas, y'all help me here and tell me if I'm wrong. When we're done with something, we're done with it. We don't, even, and I hate to say this, some of us feel like we don't need counseling, but we do. Okay? I always used to feel like, I don't need no counseling, I'm done with it. And then something, just like women, it may happen more often, but men, I could be in the car and something triggers like, oh, that's where so-and-so happened. All right. But I'm like, all right, what's done? I keep it moving. Yeah. But not that you don't need help. You may still need help in those areas. So generational curses, we have to get them destroyed. Second thing I would say to anybody, this male or female, make sure you are healed from everything before you jump into a marriage or any kind of relationship.
But you may not be. I got to challenge you on that, because there are some things that won't even surface until marriage rubs you away.
I agree. But here's what I can say. Those things that you can that you know, because there are some things that you know you've broken about. You know they're red flags, but you see the red flags, and then you be like, but he has money. But you about to get talked to like a dog. Or he may not have no money. He treats you well, but your thing is like, the last guy took all my money, and he ain't got no money now, so I'm about to be. All I'm saying is find yourself, and this is one of my favorite sayings. Don't build walls, build walkways. Because when we build walls, what happens is the next person has to jump over this wall. All right, and a lot of us get into a lot of relationships. We do a lot of relationship. We jump into relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. And women more so than men, in my opinion, because you all are by nature loving and givers by nature. Men by nature, we don't give our all right away. The most thing to be 100, we're takers. I want what you got to give, and if I really like it, I keep coming after it. If I don't really like it, I leave it alone. God bless you, and keep on moving. You get what I'm saying? So what happens is we build walls, whether male or female. You build this wall, and when you finally find Mr. Right, there's this big wall that he going like, Jesus. Every time you're having a conversation, no, I don't like that. Oh, no, he like, why is it like a fight to get to you? Because you built the wall and don't know you built this wall. Now, when we build walkways, while you're walking down the walkway, the reason why I say don't build walls because it's so high we got to climb over it. But walkways, we can walk it through, and I can look like, oh, I don't like that. Let me check on that. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. And let me see this. And then you be like, well, that's good. So that'll be fine. This I can deal with. This I can't deal with. And learn how to move forward.
And I think what I would tell women, single or married, is a lot of times we put boundaries and parameters on men, right? Well, I don't want him to do this. I don't want him to say that, whatever, whatever. You have to set up some parameters for yourself concerning what you will allow. So the only way that you can say, okay, I won't build a wall, I'll build a walkway, right, is to also put guardrails there so that you don't take yourself off the road. And by that I mean, like what he was saying, what my son said to his
because tell them how
friend,
you were before me.
Which thing? I was a lot.
You, how any guy who came to visit you.
Oh yeah. So my dad raised me that any mail company I had, nobody could come empty-handed. I don't care if it was a balloon. I don't care if it was a cheeseburger. And literally, I would get cheeseburgers, I would get balloons, I would get one. And this was not just men or young men that liked me. This was my friends, right? And my father was like, because your time is valuable. And so anything that you're offering, and it's like, oh, here, yeah, I have nothing better to do than just sit here and give you my time all day long. And he was like, it's not to say that this young man has to have a certain amount of money or even come with a certain gift. It's his way of saying, I understand that your time is valuable, and I don't think you have the time just to sit and be with me doing nothing, right? You get what I'm saying? And so, but what I was going to say as far as guardrails are concerned, like even with what my son said to the young woman, she then hit me a couple days later, and she said, Mama Tammi, she said, do you think what he said is true? And I said, what you mean? And she was like, so do you think that's true about me? And first I went into talking to her like she was my daughter and like I didn't know who this dude was. Like, he ain't nothing. Like, I said, let me tell you, y'all said we can be for real, right? I was like, let me tell y'all about this nigga. Don't listen to nothing this nigga saying. He's out of his freaking mind, right? And I said that to him. I was like, you're out of your doggone mind. But the fact that she allowed him, mind you, I'm talking about my 22-year-old son that is a creative. He's the creative. He's the one I'm going to do music. So he acts like he's allergic to paychecks, right? So the one that's, Mom, can you send me $20? Mom, can I use the car? Dad, can I have, you ain't got nothing, and you got the nerve to tell a woman this, and then she actually absorbs it in a way that she looking at you have nothing. And she's saying what comes out your mouth is potentially valuable. You get what I'm saying? So at this point, yes, he's wrong. But at this point, baby, now I got to wonder why you feel like even questioning whether or not it makes sense. Go ahead, babe. And I think what I need for men to understand, because it's for us, like, we do not speak the same language. We are nothing alike. We have mastered the art of arguing and mastered the art of getting over it quickly, but we do not literally, I mean it, we don't speak the same language, right? But what I want men to understand concerning women is we're made in a certain kind of way, okay? We are made to take what you give. We take it. we incubate it. We allow it to grow and get bigger. We give it life. And then we give you back something that you get with your boys and say, she crazy, right? But all I'm doing is giving you back what you gave me magnified, because you can never just say or do something to a woman and it ends there. Now she's dreaming about it. Now it's, you said this to me, or said, we all are seeing in real time, and I'm gonna give this back to you because I'll be done got on this for a minute. We're all seeing in real time with Derek Jackson's wife what it looks like when somebody mess you up in your head. And that's how we are made to we internalize. Yes, we talk to our girlfriends. Yes, we're more verbal. But we're creating a whole storyline in our hearts. Well, why would he say this? Well, I thought he loved me. Well, maybe I'm not good enough. God forbid he's cheating. Now I'm comparing myself. Now it's a whole slew of things we go through that now makes loving you the best thing and the hardest thing I'll ever do.
And it's not just men, it's women too. To be able to take some of the things that we do, we have to go back to our family trait. Like half of the stuff now I know, like when I was able to sit and talk to my son, I was able to trace it back, because now it being forever 21, I'm 21 forever, but I'm 50 years old, right? And now in the last few years, I've been going back looking at my history of family, right? So when I look at my history of family, this real talk. Now, we family in here for real? I'm going to give y'all the real. My biological father was married to my mom, so me and Dietrich are not Clarence Haddons. If y'all ever know my mother and father, Clarence Bernard Haddon is not my biological father. And if y'all ever watched Preachers of LA, they told all our business, so everybody knows. But he's not our biological father. He married my mother when I was going on 4. Dietrich was going on 3. They're still happily married now. But then I had to go back and look at my biological father, who used to beat my mother, who used to cuss my mother out, who used to leave for days. And I have 4 other brothers and sisters in Chicago, my same age. Me and Dietrich, same age. So my mother said he would go missing for 3-4 months. Come back. She said he looks exactly like Dietrich. Looks exactly like Dietrich. If you saw a picture of him, like, that's Dietrich. He looks exactly like Dietrich. She said he was charismatic. The way y'all sing, the way y'all do music, that's how he was. He had a big personality. She said, but when he come home, he would drink, he would do drugs, and he'd just go crazy and just do stuff. She said what made her leave was he walked through a window, the front window. He was on drugs, walked through the window with one of us, and she said, that's the time. I got to go. I can't take it no more. So luckily, she ended up marrying Clarence Haddon. But let me tell you, so I gave you my father. Let me take you to my mother's side of the family. My mother's side of the family, my mother's father had a whole nother family on the Army base. My mother has 3 or 4 brothers or sisters. Now, wait a minute. She got 8 with my grandmother. Her mother and father had 8 together, okay? Maybe 9. It's a lot of them. But then there's another 4. So I got 2. I hope he never sees this. I got 2 Uncle Georges, right? We got the real Uncle George and we got the fake Uncle George. That's what we call him. No, real talk. The real Uncle George is the one we grew up knowing, since I was born, he's Uncle George. So now, about 10 years ago, we met the Uncle George number 2. And so he be showing up on our Zooms, our family Zooms, and we be texting each other like, who is that, the real Uncle George? Like, who talking right now? And they be like, oh, that's fake Uncle George. And it's a joke among the cousins and family, right? But here's the thing. Y'all ready? Ho runs in my family. Ho runs in your family. So I'm like, yo, it runs in my family. So now I'm learning now, even now, I'm like, you always have to be careful and keep your guard. When she said guardrails up, this is what I'm talking about. Even guardrails, you have to know your triggers. Yeah. If you don't know your triggers, you won't know what you need to do, and you find yourself in a lot of trouble. So now through our marriage, I think our marriage is so amazing, even though she can get on my last nerves at times, and I just have to whistle and come back.
Ditto.
Come back and the same. But when we first got married, our first 2 years of our marriage was hell. Yeah. It was hell because of me. And what I did was woke up one morning, like she said, we eloped. I got up one morning after two or 3 weeks of being married, and I woke up and said, what in the so-and-so I done did? I can't never date or go over, oh my God, this is crazy. I got to answer to somebody now? Like, I can't just get up and do me. I can't tell her bye. I'll call you back and go missing for 3 days. No, I can't. But how about I did it? In our first couple of years of marriage, I literally would go missing, like my daddy. And it wasn't until I had to learn, first of all, I prayed. I said, God, I don't want to be this way. I actually want to be a good husband. I don't want to be like what I've seen. Well, let me say this. I've seen a good marriage with Clarence Haddon with my mother. I saw a great marriage. So I'm like, I want to be like this, but I want to be like my father. I don't want to be like the other people I've seen in marriage. I want to be a happy. I don't want 5 and 6 children all over the world where you like, this your son, your daughter, somebody knocking on the door, and in our marriage. So Tammi played a trick on me some years ago, and act
That's
like
way too long to tell in here.
I'm not gonna give the whole story. Bottom line is, act like somebody called and said, you got a little daughter, right? I said, if that daughter ain't 13, it ain't mine. It got to be. I've been married now for about 6, 7 years. If that baby ain't that's a certain age past this, I said it ain't mine. Because what I did do is say this, and I still stand by this, and I said openly to the camera, there's nobody who can come and say, I got a 23-year-old baby that belonged to Gerald Haddon. Because that's one of the things, that's one of my staples in my life. Like I don't want no children out of wedlock that's not mine. I already had my first son, who was the sin was the sex. The blessing was the child.
But you know what? None of what he's saying had anything to do with me, though.
It was all me.
And that's what I try to make women understand. A man has to want to be a good husband because he wants to be a good husband.
Yeah.
He has to want a family because he wants a family. So if you have a man that he just don't want it, without God changing him, you'll never be good enough. It'll never be enough. And so in those moments, I have seen God change it.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think that it's impossible. But sometimes it requires you to fall back, you to say less, you to nag less. Why? Because nothing about what you were saying is going to change him. Now you need for God to do it.
And I watched my wife in that 2 years, her and my baby sister. I would come home. She wouldn't argue, fuss with me. Where you been? Where you doing? She would just be praying. Like literally, they speaking in tongues, getting on my nerves, speaking in tongues and praying. She would still make breakfast and everything. I'm like, she got to be crazy. I would think she was crazy. But the Bible says the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the believing wife. So even though I was a preacher's kid, I still needed to be sanctified. And we don't realize some of the things. And to tell you, anybody in here preacher's kids? Okay, we probably have some of the worst stuff in us as possible. And not because, and it wasn't put in us by our parents. It was put in us by people in church because maybe I was the only one that could get whooped by the deacon or sister so anybody could whoop you because they felt like the pastor could feel like he can do it whatever he wants to.
Or life was so strict.
Yeah, it was so strict. So you had to live a certain way. So when you finally get loose, you get loose. You know what I mean? You finally get like, I'm breaking loose, I'm loose. And and half the stuff we went through, I didn't believe in it. Anyway, I ain't gonna even like that's a whole other story. But we have to find ourselves, and to the single people, let me say this to the single people while I'm here. Get you a passport. Before you start like locking in on somebody, get you a passport.
Yes.
Get you a degree.
Before you sign a marriage certificate, stamp a passport.
Stamp a passport. Because I'm going to tell you this, your husband may be on the other side of the world. Your wife may be on the other side of the world. Because what we have done is, and that's no slight to this, now hear me, because I found my queen in high school, in my circle. So you can find your king or your queen in your circle. But here's what we found, what I did find out. The truth is, if you look at your circle, it's either school, church, friend of a friend,
or work. Yeah.
That you meet the person that you end up dating or that end up coming to your life that changes your life or end up messing your life up. But you need to say, like, you know what? I'm going to take the next 2 years, it's going to be about me. You should get selfish, literally get selfish. This was one of the things I wish I had done even for myself. Even though I was a traveling musician and I was able to travel and go different places, I still was in a relationship, and a couple of them to be exact. It was bad. It was really bad because I dated her 9 years. I dated this other girl 7 of those 9. Whole nother story. But I wish I had took 2 years to say, even before we got married, when I say I'm done with everybody, I'm letting everybody go. I need to take some time for Gerald to heal and be with Gerald. let Gerald, like, I need to woo-side and like let me spend some time alone with Gerald and God. And I wasn't even thinking that way. Because even when coming into our marriage, when we jumped over the threshold, when it's supposed to be all roses, it still was ugly when we got married, because I never took time to say, all right, God, fix me. Not only to fix me, let me get some time. Let me be me. Let me see what else, God, you have for me. What else you want me to do? Where am I broken at? Where do I need to get healed at? Where do I need to get healed? I didn't do that. I came into a relationship that I've already been in for 9 years. We doing this. We dating other people. We bringing other people into we sleeping with each other. We sleeping with other people. We bringing all that back to each other and then piling up on each other. Bam, in marriage. Right in marriage. So what you don't want to do, I'm talking to the singles, before you get married, get to know you, stamp your passport, because Mr. Right or Mrs. Right may be over there in Japan somewhere. And you come back with Mr. Ngato, and y'all be over here billionaires, and he treats you like whatever you like. I'm telling you. But then you get with that joker that you've been with, because what we do is we take our heart. This is what love is to me. We take our heart, you give it to somebody. I say, here, hold it in their hand, and I expect you not to drop it. Do not hurt my heart. Every time somebody drop it, that's a piece of your heart that's broken every time you pick it up. So by the time you get your heart in your hand, it's not even a whole heart. You got a fragile piece of a heart in your hand. And now, when Mr. Right or Mrs. Right come along, they got this little, your heart started out this big. They got this much of it, and we have to get it back like this. Go ahead.
And I did when you said that about your heart, and we're going to stop in a second because we want, if you guys have any questions, we want you to
get ask questions.
A lot of things we hear, a lot of times I hear couples that are already married, or even mostly women that are desiring to get married. It's this isn't working. If I had only waited for who God had for me, and I should have prayed about who God had for me, and it would be better if I waited for who God had for me, right? Well, here's the deal, and I always say this. I want you to remember this. God handmade Eve out of Adam for Adam, and she still led him down a dark alley with no lights on, right? So what that means is people be peopling. People be peopling. You're not going to find, and there is nothing wrong with the institution of marriage. Marriage is perfect. Marriage is flawless. The people in it got problems. Yeah. And so a lot of times those that are already married are like, the enemy starts working on your mind. Well, it's not working because this isn't who God has for you. And then you're going to get with whoever God had for whatever, and it's still going to be chaos. Because you are living in the world. You are a human being. And those that are waiting or want to be married, and it's like, I'm just going to pray that God send me my husband. While it is true that every good and perfect thing comes from God, he's not bringing somebody to ring your doorbell. It's true. If you want to know, how you think these women end up marrying basketball players? They have floor seats at the game.
Hello.
Come on. Am I right? You want to marry a doctor? You better find out where they're hanging out at.
You hear me?
And there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be done because I want to. I'm I'm going to say I'm really big on freeing people. Yeah. One of our things when we started pastoring is I needed to make sure that we were biblically literate, not religiously literate, not denominationally literate, but biblically literate, because the truth of the word is what frees you, right? And so we have this scripture, women, that has held us hostage in the body of Christ for many years. And it says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor from the Lord. And women were taught that as if that meant sit down, be still, and God is going to send you somebody, right? First of all, that scripture was not even directed to us. It is directed to men. Why? Because there are women everywhere. But should you find a wife, then you have found a good thing and you have obtained favor from the Lord. There is nothing biblical that suggests you cannot ask a man out. Now, there are cultural issues. People just like, I'm just not doing that. But it's cultural. I'm telling you, your God ain't got a problem with it. Now, if you want to let Big Mama make you feel bad about it, that's on you. But I'm telling you, God has no problem with it, and I'm going to give you biblical proof. You can go home and you can study it. I'm going to leave you alone. We all talk
Uh-oh.
about Ruth and Boaz.
Yep.
We all talk about Ruth and Boaz. Ruth went in, and there's some stuff about that I'm not going to even mess with y'all with, because the Western church ain't ready for what really went down with Ruth and Boaz. Look at what the Bible talks about when it uses the word uncovered. That don't just mean take the blanket off of somebody. If you study in the Hebrew and the Greek, sometimes every now and then you'll find it. Search. I'm not lying. The word feet is used for genitalia. That's a whole different story. We're not going to talk about that. But what we're going to talk about is the fact that Ruth went into Boaz, perfumed herself, prepared herself. Then she asked him a question. She said, "Cover me with your coat so that I won't be walking in shame if somebody catches me coming out of here." During that time, they didn't exchange rings. Your coat, their coat held history, family tradition. It was heirlooms. It let us know if you were wealthy or you were regular. So when a man would marry a woman, he would wrap her in his coat. At that very moment, Ruth said, "Yo, Boaz, I don't want to look like a hoe. Will you marry me?" That's what happened in the word. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and propose to anybody. Maybe it's not culturally thing. Maybe you just like, no. Because I'm the type of person, because men can be flighty, I want a man to know he ready. So I personally wouldn't want to ask him. I want him to ask me. But I'm just trying to free you biblically for you to make an informed decision. Now, don't trust me. Go get your Bible and I'm going to tell you, get an NASB or NASV Bible. It's a word-for-word literal translation of the original text. Don't get NLT, it's a paraphrase. NIV, paraphrase. Go find your NASV, pull it up on your phone. Then go get you a concordance. Let's get into a little Greek and Hebrew. Get you a lexicon. See what the Bible says about the Bible. And then take that information into your dating life and be free, and go see somebody. You know what? I noticed you. We work together. My name is so-and-so. Would you like to go get some coffee? And then I'm going to tell you something else, and I'm going to be done. Stop doing this, single ladies. I've heard so many single ladies say that you'll ask a man right off the bat if he asks you out, "Are you thinking about marriage? Because I don't have no time to waste." Are you moving towards marriage? Do you want a wife? Because I don't have no time to waste, right? Here's why I'm going to tell you, stop that. Most men are not walking around with marriage on their mind, right? So if you ask a man in that moment and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not thinking, my mind ain't on marriage," and you're like, "Yeah, no, we can't go out," right? But fool around and go out a couple of times with a man and let him sit across from you and be like, "Yo, I never thought, but it's something about, you know." And after a while, it's like, "I don't want to do this without her. I ain't never met nobody." The same man that marriage wasn't on his mind, right? You gave him the opportunity to see something in you that he'd never seen in any other woman. Now what he never thought about, he feel like he gotta have it. And so I just want us to be wise as women and not run a man away who was not raised like we were to consistently think about marriage. Y'all wasn't raised that way. We was raised with Barbie and Ken, and Barbie came with a wedding dress. I'm 5 years old, like veil and all, this what we doing. And he's somewhere playing football outside with his friends. He not thinking about that. So that was just a little tidbit. I went off on a tangent. I do that
She
every
did.
now and then.
I let her go. I let her go. Watch a movie called Mr. Malcolm's List. There's a movie y'all should watch called Mr. Malcolm's List. It's from the 1800s. It's a really good movie, especially to all singles. I happened to watch it on the plane some months ago, and we had our singles watch it a couple of weeks ago. For those who have a list, because you should have a list. And you mentally, men don't have a list, but we have a list. Is there any questions? Because we could keep talking.
Yeah,
We should spend the next. That's why I was trying to give you that look like we need to
Okay, we got
take
one
some
question
questions. Come
here.
on. Can y'all hear me? Well, yeah, but it was too late. I was already married in that 2 years. So I couldn't, but I still could reflect on myself. I ended up having to, the other part I didn't tell y'all was my mom is a prophet. And we just happened, my mom didn't know nothing about what me and Tammy had been going through because we didn't tell her our business. I happened to stop by the house one day, maybe like 8-9 months into us going back and forth. I would go back to the other girl house that I dated. I would go to her house, just so y'all know. I would go to her house and go missing. I was at my mom's house. Long story short, I'm standing in the back, me, her, Dietrich, and Tammy. And I have this thing when I talk to people, especially when I'm talking to you close. I'm like, yeah, so we do that. I touch you like this. I'm touching my mom like that. I'm constantly touching like this. And then I went to touch her the next time. She said, don't touch me. And I said, what? She said, don't touch me. No. And she started crying and she started screaming. Ow. I said, what is it? She said, I see it all over you. I said, what? I said, get it off me. What is it? You know, so I'm like, get it off. She said, if you go back, you're going to die. I said, what? She said, I see the girl doing witchcraft. She said, I see her doing witchcraft. She's wearing your clothes and she's pulling on you. And I'm like, oh, my God. So that was one of the things that really changed my life, too. Because after that was when I said, that's what I didn't tell y'all first. It was after that moment, a few weeks later, I said, I got to stop. Like, God, I don't want to be like this. What do we need to do to fix this?
And women women that may be in that position, I don't want you to think that you're stupid. I don't want you to think that you're silly. Prior to him, I was the type of person that if I could feel like I'm in love with you, right? If you've hurt me and I'm done with you and I see you, I may have to run to the bathroom, lock myself in a stall and cry. But when you see me, it's going to be like, yo, what up? We keeping it moving. I don't do that. I'm done.
Yeah.
Something, and now of course, we were too spiritually immature then
True.
to know that we were dealing with purpose,
Yeah.
right? We just thought we liked each other. We didn't know we were dealing with purpose. And so the thing that looked crazy, now we know that it was God working on my heart. Because everything about Tammy would have been like deuces.
And that's why I was say, I've been spending 23 years working on myself. I'm still a work in progress, but I can say this. I feel like in myself, I'm 97%.
You better go ahead.
You see, I gave myself a high percentage. No, because after 23 years of marriage, you find out a whole bunch of stuff about yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? You find out what you can deal with, what you can't deal with. And then what you have to do is you have to be secure and happy with the person that you have. And I'm totally happy with the person that I have. She may get on my nerves now, but I'm happy with her. I'm happy.
And our hurdles were bigger than just us. I know we don't have time to talk about it today, but we dealt with the infamous in-law issue. You know, family in your business, all of that kind of stuff. And I know that's a struggle.
That almost broke our relationship up.
Yeah, but the short and sweet of it is tell mama, daddy, sister, brother, everybody, you sleeping with who you want to sleep with. Leave me alone. If you want to be connected, if you want to see me, if you want to talk, shh. Everybody be quiet.
And with that, they can stay out of your business if y'all keep your business to yourselves. They can't get in your business if you don't run to your sister talking about, he did this, he told me so-and-so, he went and did this, or you doing that. That's how they get in your business. And
I wouldn't say do it till you done. If you done,
that's right.
talk
if you
all
done,
you
go.
Want.
But if you're not done, don't do it, because what happened is when y'all make up and y'all happy, they still looking at you a certain way, your spouse a certain way. So don't pull them into it. Any other questions? Yes. I think, okay, how old is your child? He's a boy? He's a boy. Start having a conversation with him. And the reason why I had the conversations with my kids, I took my boys on the birds and the bees walk before. Because here's another thing y'all don't know. Our oldest son is 30, but he's gay, okay? Our oldest son is gay. My middle son is a hoe. And my baby boy, he's going to marry a white girl. There's not a white person I haven't seen him bring a black person. He hasn't brought a black person to our house yet. I'm trying to figure out where he found them all at in Atlanta too, because in LA, you know, it made sense. But Atlanta, I'm like, Atlanta's like really, really black. Where you found all these white people? He's definitely gonna marry a white. So, but here's what I say to you is to definitely have the conversation. And if you have any male presence, your husband or your husband, he should start talking to him now about
And it's because they have
sharing.
access to so much sooner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He needs to have the conversation now because his friends going to have it with him if you don't. And so I had the birds and bees conversation. I never forget walking, me and Nissan, walking with my kid. I said, we got to have this conversation because little Gerald, I think he having sex. And this one, he was like 15, 16. I said, I think we just need to talk. Let's walk. So we get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We walking doing the trail. I was like, Gerald, you know about the birds and the bees? He said the bees and the birds.
And the bees
you know, that's old school. How we did it. But I ended up talking to him about it, but not realizing. But the conversation I didn't have was the mouth talk.
Because we didn't.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, and now when I look back, I'm like I should have had it.
Because we thought our actions in the home had changed that. Because he didn't see that growing up. And so now we recognize, like, yo, like, this is bigger than just what you see. This was in you.
And that's what I was going to say about generational curses when I told y'all to know them and try to destroy them. My biological father's brother was gay. I'm talking about full gay, not just little gay. I'm talking about full dress. Back then, this was the 70s. He would wear, I never forget, me, Dietrich, and my mom was in the car. We had to be 9 and 10. And we riding. We stopped at a light, and my mom said, whoa, y'all know who that is? I never forget, had on an orange dress to the ground, long wig, makeup, little breasts, skinny, had to be like 125 pounds, 130 pounds. So you know who that is? We said, we don't know who that woman is. She said, that's your Uncle Charlie. We said, what? That ain't our uncle? She's like, that's a lady. She said, no, that's your Uncle Charlie. She blew the horn and said, Charlie boy. That's what they called him, Charlie boy. He ran over to the car and said, oh, Joyce, is that my nephew? So we like, go, mama, go. But my point of telling you this is to say this, is that generational things hop. And so it skipped my brothers and sisters' kids, all of them. It got my son. A generational thing got my son. So now we deal with him a whole different way. And what I mean by that is we don't beat up on him. He thought I was going to beat him up, put him out the house. No, I told him, I said, I love you. That'll never change. You my son. I'll leave my church. I'll leave my business. Anything. If they say, my son, you have to either drop your son or take this $1 billion. I'm dropping the $1 billion and taking my son because he's my seed. He can be as gay as he want to be. I'm going to love him through what he's going through. And people beat up Dwayne Wade and Magic Johnson for how they treat their kids. But the Bible says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, if I don't have love is the key word to everything we do. I don't care about you. You can do it all day and be like, I mean, we hate so-and-so. We don't deal with so-and-so on them.
Ultimately, our religion, our denomination, none of that can ever change my son. Anybody else in here whose family member is dealing with being a part of LGBTQ or anything, nothing can change any of that but the blood of Jesus. And what the enemy hopes is that we treat them in a way that it cuts them off. They don't want to have nothing to do with Jesus. And I'm like, when I tell you, when we do our new members classes, we're like, well, been pastor and such and such. Well, our oldest son, he's gay, and you're going to see him around here. Why? Because I'm still believing God. I'm still believing God.
And if you start treating them like this, I'll end with this. Bishop Noel Jones, our pastor, he's our bishop. Bishop Noel Jones will tell you this is not a hidden thing. He has brothers and sisters that are gay. One of his brothers that just passed not too long ago was gay and stopped coming to church. He said he stopped coming to church because his parents, who was a bishop, Bishop Jones' dad and mom and them, the church began to do this to him because he was gay. He said, no, you're a bishop's kid. You can't da-da-da-da-da. So what happens is he puts a wall up against church. He stopped coming to church. Only time he came to church was for funerals, weddings, or special occasions. So my point is, we could put walls up. Remember I told you about walls? Walls are not just in relationships of marriage. It's walls in everything. So if you put up a wall with your children, if your children are like, no, we're not going to talk about that because we grew up, that's the generation we grew up in. You don't question God. You don't ask questions. Why we got to go to church every night? Shut up. We're going to church. But now our kids ask, why we got to go every night? And I say, yeah, why do we have to go every night? You know what? Cancel that service. We see you Sunday. We see you Wednesday. And go enjoy your family. You know, and that's the thing that's having changed. We put other things over our family. And what happens is when you get in a relationship and you're together, and what breaks up your relationship faster than anything is church and other people, you start putting church. Well, pastor said we got to be there tonight. It's revival. Well, they just had revival 2 weeks ago. Well, pastor said I got to bring the cookies and the grapes. Well, I wanted to take you to the movies tonight.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to say, no, hey, pastor, we can't come tonight. Like when people call us now and say, pastor, so-and-so, the family, go. That's what I love about Bishop Jones. I called Bishop Jones one time, and I hope he never sees this, because I actually lied.
Uh-oh.
I did. I wanted to go. No, I actually wanted to go hang out with you, and we wanted to do. I said, I don't want to go to church, but I still want to get paid. I'm gonna text Bishop. I text Bishop and said, Bishop, me and Tammi need some time together. We going through something right now. We just need to talk. He said, Gerald. He texted me back. Said, Gerald, family first. I said, thank you so much, Bishop. I appreciate you. I said, come on, let's go see this movie. Let's go hang out. But my point, Brooke, go ahead, Brooke.
Oh, wow.
You want to go first?
I probably should be the one. No. Without sounding deep, it really was God, and without me even knowing that that's what it was, God just allowed for my heart to stay so pliable concerning my husband. And then years later, when he could have been like, I'm done with you, same thing. And I think the thing about us is that when he decided he wanted to do right, it was 110%. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he comes to me and asks me for, like, do you know the passcode to my so-and-so? Like, you leave your phone sitting around. It's like there were no secrets. Now 23 years in, I can't tell you the last time I picked up his phone. You get what I'm saying? But there was a time that thing tormented me. But because we wanted wholeness in our relationship, we were intentional about giving the other person what they needed. When you are the offender, it's a couple of things you don't get to do. You don't get to tell the victim when they're done. You don't get to tell the victim how long it should take. You don't get to tell the victim how they should go about it. And then when you ask them, what do you need from me? Whatever they say they need is what you need to be doing. Why? Because you were the offender. And if you want it back in right standing, it's going to take time for you to prove to this person that they can trust you with their whole heart.
And then it's knowing who you're married to, too. Because some people are built, like this is how I'm built. I'm built, when I forgive, I forgive. I really believe in that. Once I forgive, I forgive. And when I'm done with it, I'm done with it. So you could have done the worst thing of the worst. Think of whatever the worst thing is. If we went through it and we made it through and we still together, I'm not going to bring it up 2 or 3 years later. You remember when you jumped off that and took my... No, I'm done with it. We're done with that. We're dealing with the new stuff is. That's how we are.
But we have terabyte
I'm praying
drives.
for women.
We
No,
store
I don't have a terabyte. Y'all have 150 million terabyte drive.
Okay, and then you have one, right? So try to stay away from those things. So here's the deal. So here's what we got to be really. I'm so glad you asked that because I meant to talk about it. So I don't know what all your triggers are. Like, I don't know, because I say I'm the only black woman I know that ain't got no butt. So I pray butts ain't my husband's trigger, because he about to be triggered everywhere but home, right? So, but let's say that's his thing. Then he has to be guarded from that. Like, for me, I like intellect. I like conversation. I like something that could be deemed so insignificant, right? So harmless. But for me to sit and have extensive, long-term conversations with male friends that we connect on an intellectual level would be dangerous for me. So I know that that's a trigger. We have a pastor, his wife, we're not going to say their names, but they went through a big old separation, ended up getting back together. I asked her one time, I said, are you going to the Beyonce concert? And she was like, I don't listen to R&B. But I know she's not extra churchy, so I'm like, what? You don't listen to R&B? And she said, it's a trigger for me. She said, R&B music make me want to put on a bikini and like get a 6-pack of beer and start twerking. That's what she said. She said, that's what it does to me. She said, so for me, even though it's not wrong, I stay away from it. So you have to be honest with yourself about what your trigger is, and then don't play with that thing.
And
don't play with it.
Look at it like Let's look at it like this. This is how I say stay away from triggers. Look at it like if you went to the doctor and they told you, say, this thing right here, if you keep doing this, it'll kill you. And literally stay away from it. They say you need to stay away from sodas, or if you're from Detroit, pop.
Now, quick
You need to stay
question.
away from pop.
Did you mean triggers to make you mess up or triggers that send you to a place?
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Triggers
Gotcha.
that send you to a place. You need to be healed from that.
Yeah.
You may even need to be intentional about some form of therapy or something like that,
Yeah.
so that you can identify it and identify how to talk yourself down. Because your trigger may never disappear, but you'll learn techniques to talk yourself down or to get off of the ledge. Because like I'm the type of person, once I'm triggered, I'm like, you jumping? Let's jump. I'm grabbing. Everybody gonna jump. We're gonna tear this house up. That's what we're gonna do. And so as women, we do set the temperature for our homes. We can blow that sucker up if we want to. And so we have to be intentional about getting the help we need to learn how to manage our triggers.
Yeah.
He had a question. Go.
Go. Yep. Move quickly.
Right.
and
Go
make-
fast.
Here's what I say, because we went through that phase, because we're born and raised Detroit, and I played for some of everybody. I produced for some of everybody in Detroit. You name them, from the Winans, Leah, Vanessa Bell Armstrong, Donnie McClurkin, anybody that was Detroit, I worked with them. Anybody. My brother's whole career, everything was that. I found myself in a place wanting more when I married her in '99. I just got finished playing with the Winans and Aaliyah, and then I started playing for Genuine or something like that. And I was like, man, I want more. It's something else I need. Now, mind you, my father's minister of music, musician at the church. I'm a music director, and we're doing all this. We're building his ministry. And I want more. She wants more for me. So she said, let's go. We come to Atlanta, actually, in 1999. We stayed for about 6 months. Little Gerald, the 22-year-old we were talking about, we conceived him here in Atlanta, but we had him in Detroit. Moved back to Detroit because it didn't work. Stayed in Detroit from 2000 to 03 when we decided to move to LA. My parents had a problem with it. My daddy really did, because you're losing your main musician. So it was a big thing. It became a family thing.
It was a family.
It was
meeting.
a big thing.
I found out a lot about
Tammy's
how the Saints felt about
They
it.
say Tammy is the reason
I said,
that he's trying to move.
And he
And
is.
no, she wasn't. What she was she was the pusher of my dreams. Okay, my dream was I really wanted more. She said, like if I said, I want a suit, buy it then. I want to move. Let's go. She said, where you want to go to? And so we tried Atlanta. Then when my best friend Nissan called me and said, you need to move to LA. I said, man, that's too far. We tried Atlanta. And Atlanta only a 12-hour drive. LA is a 32-hour drive.
And,
I said, I can't
and
just get up and
after
move.
that, because moving is fearful, and especially if you have people in your ear telling you you're not going to be able to make it, or it's this expensive, or that. Gerald and I kind of, the way we I don't want to say we made a deal with God, but this is what we asked God to do with us. We don't necessarily ask God, can we go somewhere? Because we believe that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And, listen, everywhere my foot shall try, I'm walking, baby, right? What we said to God was, if we're walking in a direction that is not for us,
Close the
block it. So God, so we rarely wait on a yes, but I'm tuned in for a no. Does that make sense? And so if it's something that you want to do, first of all, you have to understand that you are in covenant. You are not by yourself.
Yeah.
You are not alone. You are in covenant with God. This is a God idea. Everything you're doing has glory all over it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to know, right? And so he wants success for you. He brought you together. He's going to sustain it. If your desire is to be somewhere else, start looking at places to be. Start looking for jobs if you want to work. Start setting and just go. And if that's not what God wants you to do, he'll direct you elsewhere. But don't sit and wait for your pastor to say, "Oh, I feel like
or
you
your
need
dad
to,"
and mom,
or your
or
mom and
brother
dad.
and sister.
No.
You'll be waiting because they're not the people who.
Yes.
It's between y'all two. I don't care what nobody else say. It's between y'all two and God.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say this because the reason we live in Atlanta now, I was happy in Los Angeles, California. God sustained us for 15 years. We started off
Doing well.
when we first moved to LA in 03, we lived in the back house of somebody,
South
like
Central
literally
LA.
in South Central, behind somebody else's house. I was embarrassed, but our house in South Central ended up being the house that everybody named Mama came to and hung out at because the people from Los Angeles knew what it was. They was like, "Oh, you living in the neighborhood. It looked just like Boys in the Hood. Y'all ever watch Boys in the Hood? It looked just like that." And I was embarrassed, like, we can't nobody over here. But we lived there for 3 years in that same house until she forced me to move from that house. I was like, we doing good. We only pay $600 over here, living in Los Angeles, the real talk. Then we went from 600 right to 1900 that fast. But my point is, we lived there for 15 years. By the time we got ready, when we moved in 2018, we had a 6-bedroom, 5,000 square foot house, 3-car garage. I had 5 cars. We living good, right? I feel good. I got jobs. I know if I get broke, I know where to find money. I know who to call. Be like, "Hey, you got work over there? Let's work." That's how it was. Till God told her, and let me start here. I told her when we first moved there, I said, "We're only going to be here for 5 years." We ended up being there 15. So in the 15th year, the woman of God is an argument. Catch this. It's an argument. She said, "Joe, can I talk to you for a minute without this being an argument?" I said, "We could try." And she says these words. She says, "Now I'm not a pastor. I'm the minister of music of one of the largest black churches in Los Angeles at the time, City of Refuge. So I'm the minister of music. I'm doing good. Got a couple things." So she says, "You said we was only be here 5 years. We've been here 15. It's time to move. It's time to do something. I don't like it here. I'm not doing so and so. I don't feel like I'm thriving here today." I said, "Well, you got access to the same people. You write like I write. You sing. You do it. The same people I have access to, you have access to. Go to work. Make the calls. You want me to call some people for you? Go write with them. I'm not the husband telling you can't go write with that man. You can't go sing with that one. Go to work." That was the first conversation. We ended up tabling it because it was an argument. Second one, 2 months, and I got petty and said, "You know what? Where you want to go? I'm gonna start putting jobs out somewhere else. Where you want to go?" So I started calling right there in her face. "Let me call so and so. Where you want to move to?" And she started naming places. She named Atlanta, she named Tennessee, and she named Texas. So I started calling. I know people in all the places. Let me make some calls. And when I made the calls, one of them was to Bishop Murphy, because one thing I said I'd never do is move again without having a job. That's what happened to us in Atlanta the first time. And speaking of, thank you for Mark Moore, because Mark Moore Sr. gave me a job in '99. I actually was playing at his dad's church, making a little bit of money. When I had money in this, it was dwindling because I had a car note. There was $1,000. I said, I actually need to get a church job somewhere. And Mark Moore Sr. gave me a job playing for him. And I played for him for maybe 6 months until we moved back. So now let me take you back. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Tammi came to me the second time with moving. But this time she came to me with it like this. She said, "We need to talk about this." I said, "Let's go." "What?" She said, "Purpose is not here anymore." And when I said, "Purpose not here anymore," I'm the guy who, if you say God said, I back off. And when you say purpose not here anymore, I say, where is purpose? Because I don't want to be out of God's will. So what is God telling you? God's telling me Atlanta. All right, let's go to Atlanta. I said, well, it was God's will for us to be in Atlanta. Now to me, in my mind, she's messing everything up. Life is good. Sunshine every day. All day. Aaron know what I'm talking about. You can keep your top off your car parked out because the sun's going to shine. Moved to Atlanta, and we've been here 4 years, and now I'm realizing our purpose was to pastor. Our purpose was, and at the time, I'm like, what are we going to Atlanta for?
Never pastor.
I'm never pastoring. That's not in my view. I'm pastoring a church, still do music, still living pretty decent, really looking good. You know, I feel good about where we are in our life. But it was the change that was needed, and was listening to my wife too. So if y'all have a dream, chase your dream, and don't let nobody tell it what it is, and seek God. Follow your dreams and go after it, because the worst thing you want, which I don't want to do, is be 50, 60, 70 years old saying, man, I wish we could have moved to so-and-so, man, and been so-and-so. Because wherever you go, if God is in it, he's going to make sure you are taken care of. I see it every month because I put everything into our church. And I watch God take care of us every month. And everywhere I go, God take care of us. And he'll do the same thing for you.
How we looking?
We both have been done there. Any other questions before we got to take this the last one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Aaron. Come on, 7 months. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Come on. Right. Right. It's just discipline. Yeah. Hmm. It's discipline. It's definitely discipline. Get in your word. See what God says about what a wife is. Surround yourself with some healthy wives that are willing to be honest women and not act like everything's perfect, you know? But really, it's just discipline. Just take the time to change your mindset because you're not single. Start thinking like a wife. You had something to say?
You just hit the nail on the head. You have to find a couple or two that you can talk to and deal with this that are happily married. Not that tells you can't have friends even if they're single. You have to always have friends that send you back home.
Mm.
Always have friends that
Speak the
send you.
same
They have
language,
to send you
listen.
back home. If they're not sending you back home, they're not the right friends, married or single. If they're not sending, if they're saying, "Girl, he did this," "Girl, come on over here. Let's go get something to drink." I had to tell a married friend the other day who called me. He said, "My wife is this and this. They've been married for 20 years. She this and this." He texted me and said this, and this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. He said, "Should I go to? She's doing so and so and so and so. I'm mad. My friend just asked me to go to Vegas with him. Should I go?" I said, "Is he single?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Dummy, bye." You know the answer to that. Keep your tail at home and shut up. Because what happens is your single friend, if your single friend just asked you to go to Vegas and you know right now you struggling with something, you just told him, "Man, my wife tripping. Man, come go with me to Vegas."
Right.
That's the wrong thing to do.
Now he's wrapping us up, and as
Sorry,
we leave,
Ann.
I want to tell wives and women something. We always talk about being a helpmeet, and it's given to us. Look, I'm getting my jacket. I promise you, we done. I'm giving you. You said we keep going. Are we good? Okay. All right. I don't want to get in no trouble.
We cutting y'all dinner time. Y'all all right?
No, they hungry. The same.
No, because y'all sure? Let us know when y'all be like this.
Okay. So let me tell you guys okay. So here's how y'all just start walking out. We'll be like, well, it's done. They walking out. But we'll talk to y'all as long as y'all want to talk. But when y'all done walk out, we'll be like, well, guess that means we got to go too. We're brought up and we're taught about being a helpmeet, right? That God was making Adam a helper suitable to him. And so we're just kind of given that thing almost as if we're just supposed to support his dream. It almost invalidates us as being somebody that's viable and intelligent and, So I want you to know that helpmeet does not just mean somebody that, you're there to help your husband's dreams, which you are. It is also a military term. Being a helpmeet is a military term, kind of like being a soldier that keeps watch. You see in the distance what your spouse may not see. Now, husbands, that's why a lot of times your wife may say something like, "Keep an eye on her." And you be like, "What? She ain't said nothing to me."
She's just my friend.
She sees in the distance and it ain't even just women. It could be some male friend trying to get you in a business deal, like, I don't know about that. Let's keep, And we were talking about it last night, and another thing we called it is being a spotter. Your wife is your spotter. You lifting, right? You got life going on. You doing your man stuff, but she's standing there just in case it gets too heavy, just to make sure it doesn't crush you, right? Don't let church, don't let tradition, don't let cultural ideas make you miss what is truly in your wife that could help you. I told somebody Sunday, I gave somebody a word. I said, your wife is not just she's not just going to carry your children, she's carrying your future. And a lot of times you'll close out what she has to say just because she's the woman. And that's kind of how we're taught. You know what I'm saying? But if you'll every now and then lean into what she's saying and then take what she's saying to the Lord. You're still the head of the house, so take it to God. Like, God, I trust my wife. I love my wife. This is what she's saying. Talk to me concerning this, God. What should I do? But the moment you're like, yeah, no, you ain't got nothing, and get the flicking light, get the flicking switches, that's when you mess up.
And I want to say this to women, especially the single women, because we're married, even the married women. Talk to your husbands about your future. That's one of the things I don't think a lot of us do in the beginning. I think we should sit. Counseling is key, first of all. Let me say that. Not just with your pastors. You can get it with your pastors if you want to. But you need to go see somebody that got the actual paper on the wall with their name, like,
Give
they
you
went
some
to school
steps.
for it. Go to counseling. Go to counseling. Even when things are amazing, go to counseling. It's important. It's important to have that. Even on your good times, have counseling. But women, do me a huge favor. I'm going to word it right.
Oh.
Sit and talk with your spouse before you get married and even after you're married about your goals. Yeah. Because what happens with women, because you all are emotional, you are emotional, you are givers, you are free givers. Y'all like here. And we are takers. We'll take it.
We're so intelligent.
And so what happens is you'll shut your career down and your life down for a man. And then you heard us say earlier, what about me? The what about me comes along 10, 20 years later. And then the husband says this, I never asked you to shut yourself down for me. But you didn't have to. I saw where, because a spotter, I saw where you needed it, so I stopped. But I'm like, but I never asked you to stop doing it. So my suggestion is, at the top, don't wait at the top. I'm going to ask men, ask her, what's your goals? Where you plan on going? How do you plan on get there? And how can I help you? Because I know what I want to do. I'm going to do music. I want to do this. I want to jump rope for 2 years, whatever it is. Say, I want to do this, and let's see how we can figure it out. Because here's the truth of the matter. How many people got kids? Okay, most of the people in the room. How many plan them to have kids? How many plan for those kids? Like, I literally said by 1999 or 2000 so-and-so, I'm going to be married, I'm going to have kids. How many you plan for it? You plan for it.
He said one we did.
You plan for it.
The other one slipped up on.
How many didn't plan for it? So out of all the people in the room,
three was wrestling and something happened.
You did both, right? So here's the thing, because we never planned for none of our kids. She actually asked me for them. Like, I ain't gonna.
Oh God!
Anyway,
Gerald, too
did.
much.
She did. She asked.
Too
she
much.
Said, get me straight. So anyway, we never. You see, but we didn't plan for kids. So what happens is when you're wrestling, that's what I'm gonna call it for our church people. When you're wrestling in your marriage, and then you have a kid, then all of a sudden, because she has to carry the baby. Most of the times, mom drop everything for the baby while dad goes off and does, goes off, right? But we didn't discuss it because we didn't plan. But I suggest planning for everything you can. Let's try to plan for it. Not that it won't slip up and something happen, but if we plan for it, we know we have a plan.
And be as transparent as
you can be. So even when you have a baby, now we're going to figure out, can you still go to school and I watch the baby? Or can we get, what do you call it? What do they watch the kids? A nanny, or can we send them to daycare, or can you afford to do it? That way you're not in the what about me later on.
So you're actively trying to make sure both of your lives are thriving. And
both matters.
And then one thing, and we're going to turn it over unless y'all got questions.
We'll say that 50
I want
times.
you all, no really, because it keeps coming up, stuff people ask us. I want you all, especially those of you that are married, those of you that are single, grab this, hold it, and save it. I want you to be sexually honest with each other. Try your best to communicate well. Pastoring, we expected to deal with married couples that were having trouble. We expected to deal with single people that were struggling with, not having sex and celibacy. What we were not prepared for was the amount of married people that are happily married that do not have good sex lives because they were taught sex was all they heard in church was wrong, wrong, sin, sin, can't do, can't do. Now they're married and they're struggling in satisfying each other because the mindset is not shifting the way they need it to shift, right? So what you have to do is be honest about what you want, be honest about what you need, be honest about what you're uncomfortable with, what you're willing to try, what, like, listen, I don't want to end up in emergency, what we trying to do here. Like, be, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not in the ER, I'm good. Like, just don't do nothing that is like, now I got to go to now we got to call the ambulance.
Aaron got to get his.
But yeah,
Aaron
so be honest with each other about the hard stuff. Singles, be sure about what it is you're looking for. And just because you meet Mr. or Mrs. Right? Don't take down in the sense of, oh, I just won't mention that, I need certain things. No, if you need communication, you better say that.
Yeah.
Because if you marrying somebody that's like, I just watch TV, I don't like talking.
Because
you in trouble.
Because most of the time, men, we're in trouble for something we don't even know we're in trouble about.
True.
All the time. We in so much trouble. I'm like, what did I do?
Half of y'all in trouble right
so you
now
don't know.
and ain't even got girlfriends.
You supposed to know you should have just bought me flowers today. No, you have to tell me because I'm going to tell you if I want some new shoes, if I want something, I'm going to be straight up. If I want sex, I'm saying, what we doing tonight? What's happening? You know what I'm saying? Be totally 100. And that's what we have not done, period, as husband and wife. So even going into a relationship, be 100 with what you need, what you want. We're done. Anybody else? We good? Y'all good?
Everybody?
Okay.
Okay.
This is about to be the big one. Girl or boy?
For a boy.
Okay.
My son is 13, so I would say 13, 7, and 6. So it's kind of like the two girls are, it's my 13-year-old who has experienced like lots of loss. His father committed suicide.
Jeez.
Wow, just my mother passing, my like so many close people, and then on top of my traumas and my traumas not being healed, and they're moving over into parenting or so what is the proper way to, when you see things, to address it? Like, how did you address your son with that? Because
okay.
For me, I would lose it.
That's what you can't do. She was ready to lose it. She called him and said, Gerald, where are you? I said, stop. I said, that ain't the way we should do this. I said, we got to let him know, first of all, it's a safe place. Because what happens with children, none of us, be honest, you wasn't safe at times. If your parents told you, you gonna go, I ain't gonna tell them. But if they're open enough to have the dialogue where they could talk to us, they'll share. So you need to, instead of beating him up, say, I'm gonna lose it. Say, Junior, let me talk to you. Say, where you at with the women now? Where you at? Say, because, and then begin to share some of your story. And that's what we had to do with him. And it's still a process. He still ain't got it together.
And then you have to be prayerful, though, because it is a spiritual situation.
Absolutely.
And I always say it ran in my family till it ran into me.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be intentional about going before the Lord and asking God to help you in those moments, giving you insight on how to deal with your children, because the enemy is after them. The enemy is after your bloodline, that whole thing. And so you have to be intentional about those kind of things. Amen?
Absolutely.
So we want to pray for you guys.
But just make sure you just have the conversation. Don't wait until there's a problem to have a conversation. Like, you should go home today. If everything good, he done washed the dishes or did what he said he's going to do. Say, come on, let's just have a father, mother, and son talk. Let's talk. Where you at? How you feeling? And don't let him begin to share. And once he share, or you start sharing, because this is what I believe, and I know this wholeheartedly. If you show somebody your scars, they'll show you theirs.
True.
So if you don't show none of your scars and show yourself to be perfect, it wasn't until maybe 10, 15 years ago I started hearing my mama actually tell her story. And I'm like, Ma, you need to tell this more often, because people will be open to y'all. Because where I grew up is, Pastors put themselves here, and they look down at you. Then they look up. There's a scandal or something that happened. We find out. Wait a minute, you used to get drunk. Yeah, I used to get drunk. But see, I don't tell everybody that. No, you need to share that. You need to share that. So you need to start sharing your story and give them pieces of it. You don't have to give them all the broken everything, but give them enough for him to know, like, oh, she's sharing some of hers. Let me share some of mine with her. Yeah, I did try weed. You tried what? No, don't do that. Be like, yeah, I tried it too. And one of my friends who tried it, like, this is what I told my son, and I'm really done there, I promise. Mm-hmm. We told my son one of the stories when we sat. So he came into the room. I said, Gerald, he said, what'd I do? Y'all found weed in my room? He started telling himself. I said, nah, because that's another thing. They smoke weed, and that's a whole nother problem. I said, no, we didn't find weed in your room, but let's talk. I said, Z called and said, you said so-and-so. He said, I ain't said like that. I said, yeah, you said it like that. I know you did. I said, it's cool. I said, here's the deal. I talked to your mama like that. Not only did I talk to your mama like that, this and this and this, and then I began to share with him about me. I said, I'm going to tell you about your daddy. Your daddy did so-and-so and so-and-so. I said, Gerald, man, it wasn't fun. And then I told him this story, and this one, he went, I said, your mother's, the church she grew up in, her daddy, the pastor's son, talked to his girlfriend the way you just did. Same exact thing you said. He said to his girlfriend, and then her brothers came back and shot him in the head weeks later. I said, so when you talk to a woman like that, you don't know who she connected to, who like she went and told her brother or told her cousin what you said. She may forgive you. Them jokers ain't forgot. And say, oh, when we see him, we're going to get him. Tell him it's on sight when we see him. I said, so were you talking to her like that? You don't know her uncle. She may not have a brother, but there's a crazy uncle that lived there, right? He said, yeah. I said, if she went and told her crazy uncle what you said to her, and next time he said, you go to L.A. thinking everything cool, uncle ain't forgot. Uncle be done tied you up somewhere and beat you to have the death because it's just your mouth. He said, that is a valid point. I said, exactly. You got to watch what you say and how you say it. And so when you share those kind of stories and tell them that way, it's like, I'm not treating you like a child because he's not a child anymore. He's actually a grown-up, and I'm trying to keep him from killing himself with his mouth. You can kill yourself with your mouth. So you just have to start there.
So we want to pray for you guys. Is that all right? All right, let's stand because we're going to get churchy for a minute. Let's stand because we're ready to get out of here. Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we thank you just for this day, just for this opportunity to share, to pour out, God. We even stand here today thanking you for everything that we've gone through because it's a testimony to help someone else, God. We thank you that every marriage in this room, God, is healed, whole, and happy in Jesus' name. And we thank you that every person in this building that is desiring to be married, that is desiring to have a family, that God, it will be theirs, God. We don't subscribe to what the world says, but we know that marriage is a God idea and that what you created, you can and will sustain. God, we just thank you for everything that you're doing. We ask that you would just give them supernatural increase during this conference, God. Fill them up with everything that they need, and we will just forever give your name all praise, all glory, and all honor. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Thank y'all for hanging out with us.
And we have to thank Mark Moore for having us. Can y'all make some noise for Pastor Mark Moore?
Did you tell them about the event?
Junior.
Did you tell them about the event? We have an event. Did you tell them?
I ain't say nothing.
February 3rd. It's called Haddon After Dark. You gonna come? No, you ain't. You lying. Don't lie.
I don't know.
Okay. It's called Haddon After Dark, and he said we do it on Fridays, but we literally talk about everything. Nothing is taboo, nothing. We talk about it all. We're going to have some dope couples. We're not naming who it is yet, but you can go to the Eventbrite. It's what is it? Oh, that's a lot. HADATL.eventbrite.com, or if you follow us, it'll be on our social media. But if you February 3rd, if y'all really want to really talk where y'all gonna be like, are they sure they pastors? Y'all want to be there.
Listen, can we give it up one more time for Pastor Gerald and Tammi Haddon? It was a wonderful, transparent, honest. It was definitely a time of education. Listen, we're getting ready to get out of here.